Check, check. It's good to see you, Lobito.
Good to see you too, man.
I think the last time was at the W during my album listening party, wasn't it?
That's right. That's right. That was a great event, man. And congrats again on the launch.
And thanks for supporting me, man.
Of course.
It sort of goes a long way when creatives come out to support one another, in Dubai. So what have you been working on since then, man?
Wow, it's been kind of a ride. So right now I'm working heavily for Expo 2020. So at the moment I'm working towards doing some programming of some DJs and some entertainment for Expo. So that's moving along. Everything's been affected by the thing that everybody's talking about, the corona, but.
Shout out Corona.
Yeah, it's like I wish as artists we could have the same impact, but
right.
but it's for all the wrong reasons. So Expo's moving forward. My latest project, which I've been working in conjunction, is the Turntable DJ Academy. So that's a joint venture for me to try to bring a certain more of an international level of education for
right.
DJs. So I took the decision to name it Turntable DJ Academy because the turntable is the foundation of DJing. But for me, we're obviously going to teach all forms of DJ equipment.
Right.
But I think, having taught established DJs as well as newcomers, they're all just different routes to the same goal. So the main thing is basically to get people interested in the art form, give them a head start, allow them to really learn the foundation, get them to actually try different forms of equipment, not just the equipment that they're used to. Right. So get a controller DJ using turntables, show a turntable DJ what's possible with controllers, right. Because digital DJing offers a lot of tools and interesting things that you can use as well. So I think that's really the message. So, DJing has multiple layers. It's a deep culture, right. Because music is as deep as the cultures that created it, and it's the same with DJing. So if you learn to DJ in Jamaica, you have a completely different approach. Yeah. You're basically learning all the kind of sound system culture is kind of already embedded, and the kind of setup of the systems is already embedded in the culture. It's not just showing up with your controller, for example. And then, if you come from a hip-hop background, which is my background, yeah. Then you learn turntablism, you go deep back into the roots of the music that started hip-hop, if you're really into it. So, it's like all the samples, all the original breaks from the 70s, and all the b-boy culture and the breaking culture. There's so many layers to it. So for me, Turntable DJ Academy is really an entry point for DJs to start to scratch the surface of a very deep culture and be able to help them do that and engage some international DJs are going to come over as well, right. To help support the project.
Have you fixed a date for this event already, or?
So this is going to be a school. So it's going to launch from next month. Right. Obviously, all schools are closed right now, so we're just waiting for things to settle down. But we're also going to be doing remote teaching and things like that, and offering classes.
Are you working with other DJs who are based in the UAE specifically, apart from those who want to sign up?
Yeah.
For the educational
100%.
aspects.
I mean, for me, this project, I also want to have a strong community aspect to it,
right.
To try and bring DJs like very well-known DJs in the UAE, like Brooklyn, etc.
Right.
Have them come in to be able to share some knowledge, make it a vehicle as well for DJs to connect, support each other, learn new things. Because Brooklyn actually mentioned, and I live by this as always being a student. So even if right. I'm starting the school, I'm a student. Right. All of us are. We're learning all the time, and then it's how deep you want to take your craft. So really it's we're teaching, but we're learning. You can learn from a beginner DJ. Sometimes they'll do something unexpected and you're like, wow.
As a veteran in the game, in DJing, I mean, for those of you who don't know, Lobito is probably one of the most successful DJs in the UAE, right?
Thank you.
My pleasure. In your opinion as a veteran, would you say that there is a lot for digital DJs to learn from people like you who still do turntables?
100%. I
Right.
mean, but I do it in a very holistic way. So, there's a lot of DJs of a certain generation who I would describe as very salty,
Right.
who basically don't really know how to engage with youth, or just come off as straight up abrasive. And so they can put a lot of people off. So for me,
Right.
it's more about kind of trying to find the common ground and then introducing it. But obviously, sometimes you have to just tell people if it's wrong, it's wrong. You know what I
Right.
mean? But of course, digital DJs, a lot of the time, they haven't had the experience of really digging for records
Right.
and going through crates and spending the time in building their selection. So,
Right.
for example, like with me, I would go to a record store and I might come out with, 50 records. But at the time, I wouldn't necessarily have the money to buy all 50. So
Right.
then I have to be like, it has to be just killer, no filler. And that process of selection is kind of lost on a lot of digital DJs because they'll take everything because it's
Yeah.
a digital download. So it's
Yeah.
like you have everything on your hard drive. But then you can get lost in that. Then your selection is not as precise.
Do you know what? It's ironic that you said that because I was at an event and I was talking to a particular DJ, and the DJ that was mixing at the time just switched from one genre to something very strange. And she said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, MKO, but it's just that I have this habit of listening to DJs when they do their thing." And I think it comes from discipline, right? Because for most turntable DJs, they have that discipline. They already know how best to switch from one music to the other. And does that have to do with the fact that you find a lot of the old content on turntables compared to new music?
I think it's more to do with your knowledge of music. So really taking time to appreciate the structure of songs, understand which kind of songs go together,
Right.
finding like common themes. You could play an old funk record and then it has a drum break. You could loop that drum break and then that's the drum break that is a perfect transition into a hip hop record that sampled that drum break.
Right.
You could, instead of throwing that hip hop record on, you could throw an a cappella, and that could be your way into another genre. It's an infinite way of mixing genres and styles and things like that. So it's not really to do with, I think turntable DJs are more oral
Right.
instead of visual.
Right.
Digital DJs are focused a lot on what's happening on the screen a lot of the time.
Gotcha.
And so I think when you have that natural, or you build that natural sensitivity of how things work on an audio level rather than a visual level, you naturally can mix a little bit with a little more sensitivity often.
How can people connect with your institution? Because I'm not a DJ, but I feel like I've been able to take away quite a few information from you today. So how can people get connected?
Yeah, sure. So the Turntable DJ Academy, you can find it online. Just Google it. It's basically a joint venture between myself and SAE Institute.
Oh, right, okay.
You can go to SAE Dubai on Instagram. You can call SAE Dubai and they'll give you information. And then we're planning to start classes and all of these things.
And how can people connect to your Instagram?
So it's Lobito Brigante, which sounds, sometimes can be a bit difficult because I'm of Spanish descent.
Right.
So Lobito Brigante on Instagram, or you can just probably Google Lobito Dubai and you'll find a route to me. But
All right.
Yeah.
I'm going to pass the ball on to you now. It's my turn. It's your turn to ask me questions.
Yeah, man. So just tell us a little bit more about your journey, because we've had a lot of personal chats, and I really find your journey in music, and especially if you would like to tell people about your experience with the Seychelles and how that affected your music career, I think that would be interesting for aspiring music artists to hear.
Well, for most of you who don't know, I've lived in the UAE for about 11 years. I've got a corporate background, and then whilst I was working, I was also pushing my music career. And I think having a 9-to-5 really helped me with getting to where I am musically at the minute. I got a call that, MKO, you've been booked for a show in Seychelles, and I was wondering, okay, who knows MKO in Seychelles? Turns out that one DJ was sort of going through YouTube, and he stumbled on my record, Good Loving, and he was playing that consistently on radio.
The power of the DJ.
Do you get me? Like, we all need you guys. We can't do this without DJs. But anyway, so I arrived in Seychelles and I got on stage. And at this point, I was thinking, you know what? I'm just gonna do this for the love of the music and for the opportunity of being here. Got on the mic and the song just came on. It's another one, it's MKO. And everybody went completely mental. And at this point, I'm thinking, I didn't know that guy in Dubai who's been trying to get his music out there. I wouldn't say a big deal, but his music is such a huge deal in a small island, and 6,000 people are here to see me do my thing. I think that was an eye-opener for me. And at that point, I realized that you don't have to focus on where you are. You gotta have to think bigger and understand that the world is a much bigger place and there are so many people you can connect with. You could have a base, which is Dubai for me, but Dubai is just a small, the small part of it.
Yeah.
You gotta have to think about the world entirely, and that's what Seychelles did for me.
Yeah, I think that's really inspiring to hear, because as Mazzy was saying in his talk, he had a track that blew up in Greece. So that's why I kind of wanted to ask you about that, because I think a lot of artists, sometimes they get a little bit depressed, or they feel like they're not really, they're not appreciated in the city. I mean, as a DJ, I found, I got statistics on the listenership of some of my mixes, and I found that 90% of the listeners of my stuff were in the US and in Japan.
Yeah.
So but obviously I'm very well known here because because the mixes I put out are more conceptual. So but the stuff that I play out in the party is different.
Yeah.
So I think for artists like yourself, etc., I think having that global perspective, if your music's good, there's always going to be someone somewhere in the world that's going to appreciate it.
And you don't have to narrow it down to just where you're based. Like you said, I'm known here. I'm popular outside of the UAE. You get I got a booking in Kenya, and I arrived, and there were 3 other venues that wanted to, book me around the same time. And at that minute, I realized that, there is a lot more that we could give as artists, and we have consumers. You just have to keep grinding, because they are there waiting for you to put out something that will get their attention.
Yeah.
And I also run a platform called Art Fusion Night. Art Fusion Night is a platform that we created to showcase local-based creatives. We've been doing this for about 3 years, and we've collaborated with brands like Nakil, Davidoff, Capital Club in DIFC. So what we do at Art Fusion Night is we showcase art, music, fashion, poetry, comedy, and all sorts. So it's a night where we showcase all forms of art. Mm-hmm. And you'd be surprised at the number of talents that have passed through that platform, and they've all done bigger things. We have a guy who won the Emerging Artist of the Year at World Art Dubai, and the cheapest art piece that he owns he sells is probably $8,000. He is kind of a big deal, but he has never ever showcased his piece on any platform. So Art Fusion Night was the first place where he came and did his thing, and for us that was it was an achievement to see him go from where he was to where he is. It's not about the success in terms of the monetary aspect. It's the fact that now he's known, his work has been appreciated. And then when we started the platform, a bunch of other people are sort of replicating the concept, which is an amazing thing, because it means there are more platforms for creatives to showcase themselves. Because when we started it was almost like, who's going to come out and watch an unknown artist? But my response was always, I would give you a reason to do so, because you're not coming to see them, you're coming to see what they have to offer, which is their talent. So I'm pleased to see where Art Fusion Night is now, and I'm pleased to see that other platforms have come up, and they've started to see what we saw many years ago, that there are so many talents in the UAE that everyone can tap from.
And I would agree with you. I mean, my experience has been the same. I think as an artist in the UAE, where the industry can be either non-existent or slightly unforgiving, or at least, it's definitely grown a lot. But when I started out, I think creating platforms is a fantastic way to not only uplift yourself, but then have a way to uplift other artists as well. So
Yeah, big shout out to Emirates Music Summit.
Yes.
I hadn't seen you for about, 8 months now,
Right.
but here we are. And I've met so many amazing people tonight. So the more we can have, the more of such initiative, the more we can all get connected, and we can have a more personal relationship. It wouldn't seem like, oh, I've been hearing about this MKO guy. Okay, whatever. I've been hearing about Lobito, but there is a personal touch.
Right.
Like if it wasn't for the listening party or however way we got connected,
Right.
it would have been like one of those names I've been hearing, Lobito, or because I know of your work.
Yeah.
But there is a huge difference when there is a personal touch.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's rare to get me out into the spotlight, so shout out to Albert. Because
Shout out to Albert, I know.
I tend to stay in my cave working on my projects, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we need more platforms like this. And then, the big guy who is sort of taking control of the world right now, coronavirus. Tell me, what impact does it have on you?
Well, I think, it's, first thing is, I think a lot of people online have suddenly become medical experts, and I think that's a mistake. So I'm not going to be the guy to fall into that trap.
Yeah.
I've read about it like anybody, should, just to educate myself on what's happening and how it's affecting things. I have a lot of friends. I think the economic impact is more severe for a lot of people than the medical impact. Not to downplay the virus, but I think the way that things have been handled by a lot of countries has worsened the economic impact on people.
Right.
And I think that's going to affect a lot more people, and we still don't know the full extent of that.
Yeah.
So I think in the context of this talk, it's important to communicate to artists to really start to think laterally about other ways that you can make revenue and get your creative hats on of what can you do digitally, what can you do online, how can you improve your revenue streams, instead of just sitting back either pretending something's not happening or sitting back pretending like you have it all under control or it's not going to affect you. I think it's a good exercise for anybody in the creative industry to really look at, okay, how can let's assume things get further locked down. Let's assume my revenue streams get pulled currently. How can I sustain myself if this is my only source of income?
I think that is it's a great point, because you realize that a bunch of people here focus on just their art. They don't understand that it's a business, and there are a much more entrepreneurial aspect to whatever we do. I got 3 shows that were cancelled, 2 in Abu Dhabi, 1 in Bahrain, and 1 in Dubai, so 4. And this particular event, obviously, you could see the huge impact which it has on the event. So I think it's a wake-up call for many of us to have other means of revenue streams as opposed to just focusing on what we do musically. I run an event company. I own a label. I sing. But what else can I do when something like this happens in the future? Do you get me?
I agree 100%, and
Yeah.
I think an event like this and to communicate any message right now
Yeah.
would be to use these kind of platforms now to connect with other creatives,
Yeah.
find out what they're going through.
Yeah.
It's good anyway, just for mental health within the community, get them to share what's happening to them, and then look for solutions.
Yeah.
And then see how we can collaborate in order to build platforms that maybe didn't exist before that we can use in these difficult times.
And maybe we can take more advantage of the online platform. So, for example, an event like this could be streamed online, and which means people could pay maybe 5 dirhams to stream it live. So you don't necessarily have to focus on having to be in a much more crowded place to be part of an event or a community.
You could establish your own platform. There's
Yeah.
established platforms like Patreon that I
Yeah.
know a lot of people use as well.
Yeah.
There's different means. I think we need to bring it to a close. So
Yeah, that's it.
Thanks so much, MKO. I
Listen,
really appreciate your time.
It's always a pleasure, man. And I'm sure we're going to do more things like this. Big shout out, Berto. Nice one, man. Yeah.